well, what's happening? And where the heck are we? I'll tell you. We're doing something today that we rarely get to do, and that's talking to some gentlemen that create a part that we're going to use. But this isn't something that I initially found. This is something that this man found, because what we're trying to do is sort of undo something that's done to modern vehicles. Isn't that right, Dr. George?
Well, some modern vehicles, I suppose, they have canister filters, like on some of the Mopars that, you know, go in from the top of the engine, which we've looked at in a previous video on my wife's Cherokee.
Yes, we did. That was very interesting.
And it makes it really easy to change the oil, because you're not flopping around on the ground with oil falling in your face when you're doing the filter. But at the same time, it allows oil to drain back down to the bottom of the engine. And then there's you know, a delay in delivery of oil to other parts of the engine, and you can have, you know, increased wear. Because of that. So
that's a bad thing.
So these guys have designed this Razoo system for all sorts of different vehicles, including Jeeps with 3.6s and 3.2s, which I have both.
You do.
And we're going to talk to them today about their product. And then we're probably going to do an install on my wife's Cherokee.
I love it. All right, well, who are these gentlemen? Let's go make ourselves an introduction.
Hi.
Hello, sir, and who might you be?
I'm Kevin Baxter. I'm president of Baxter Performance, and this is Rick Fleming, and he's vice president of Baxter Performance.
We got the top dogs here, gentlemen. So what is this, and why did you create it? I'd love to hear the story. Like, how did this even come about?
Well, it actually evolved out of Toyotas. They were having flow back on their oil filters because they went to the cartridge style. And although it remains underneath, it was still flowing back on the filter. And so they did this for about 10 years and realized their mistake, so they went back to spin-on filters. Almost all of the Toyota engines have converted back to the spin-on filter. And the reason for that is that the spin-on filters contain an anti-drainback valve. And the cartridge filters found in some systems, not all, but some of them, do not have any kind of anti-drainback prevention. And with the case of the Jeep engine, which is a 3.6 here in this Gladiator, it completely drains back. It doesn't have any kind of anti-drain back or flow back protection in the filter, and it's mounted on top. So what happens is 35 minutes after the engine shuts off, it completely drains back, and next time you start your engine, it has to fill up from the pump all the way back up to the cartridge oil filter and the cooler, back down midships in the engine to the main oil distribution galley, and then back up to the head. So it takes 3.5 seconds for the left head on this engine to get oil pressure, which is prolonged dry starting. Yeah.
And like you guys were saying, in the cold, I'd imagine that number goes up, huh? Yeah. I don't think we want that. That's probably not good. And so you apparently didn't want that in your vehicle either. No. So that's great. I can't wait to see the product and how it works, because it's pretty fascinating. So,
and we've had customers even commenting on how quick the product arrives and the packaging.
Oh man, fast! That's way cool. Wow, look at that baby.
So there are some features here in this particular unit. So, and actually 3 patents. 2 of them are still pending, but we're almost there. So one is a spring-loaded docking collar that stays sealed on the inside. So when you screw it in, this stays compressed, and then because we'll have to back it out to get it to a certain orientation, as you back it out, it still remains sealed on the end. And then another one is this this cleat design in the threads, because we're screwing into plastic, right? So we have to be able to lock it in place once we get it there. And so by tightening the screw right here, it changes these threads and shifts them so it locks it in internally. So now it can't turn left or right when you're putting the screw-on filter on or taking it off. And then we also have a full flow check valve that's on the inside that that opens and closes with oil flow.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So there's 3 elements here that are particular and exclusive to just this, this configuration of oil filter.
And this is what's going on your rig, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yes, yes, indeed.
So this is the oil filter and cooler unit that exists underneath the intake manifold on the 3.6 and the 3.2 as well. And so after you take the cap and the filter out, you're just going to take our unit in after putting on the the supplied O-rings, and you're just going to screw it in place. And then, because we'll have to orient it to get a Schrader valve in there for a purpose we'll discuss later, we can back it off and then lock it in place through that screw that I was talking about. That
okay.
changes that configuration of the alignment of the cleat that's in there. But yeah, it's just very simple to do. It's very, very quick and easy to install. And once it is installed, it looks like this. And here we have an oil filter that's mounted on top of it. The Schrader valve that's mounted on the side, which is just like your tire valve, and that's right over
so you
here.
can see it.
When you go to do an
there we
oil
go.
change, you just take the cap off of that and take an air chuck to it off your air compressor or bicycle pump, whatever you have, and you just put compressed air to it for about 3 seconds, and it'll displace the oil in the filter. So when you take off the spin-on filter, even though it's inverted, it won't spill a drop because you will have displaced all the oil in the filter itself.
Now that is nice.
Yeah, so it works out really well. Makes for a clean oil change on top of everything else.
One thing that's very popular with these Jeeps is overlanding. And what that means usually is you're putting all kinds of things on this vehicle and you're going slow, which really starts to heat up this engine, and you're not going fast enough to get any air cool. So these guys have even thought about that, haven't you?
Yeah, I sure have, and a lot of people are also boosting. They're going turbocharging, they're doing superchargers. Yeah. But even if you're towing a heavy rig, I mean, you know, like a trailer, or you got really large tires and you're crawling over big rocks and you're applying a maximum amount of torque to the engine, you're getting more blow-by on the piston, and that's just a combustion gas. It's getting by the piston, heating up the oil even more. So nobody has a way to add extra oil cooling to these engines, but we do, because we came out with a remote adapter. Ooh. So instead of having a spin-on application right on top, we have 2-10AN ports that are quite large, and you can go to a remote filter, and then you can get out to a remote oil cooler too, so you can add extra oil cooling. And the reason you'd want to do that on this particular engine, the 3.2 and the 3.6, is if you're taxing the engine like that and you got extra torque, you have the cooling exchanger right here that actually the hot oil goes through it, and then there's also the coolant running through it, and it's bringing the temperature of the oil down to at least the coolant temperature at this stage. The problem with this design, though, in this particular design, is the fact that the oil temperature sending unit would sit right here. What a lot of people don't know is there are a 50% bypass vein here that the oil runs through and bypasses the cooler. So only 50% of the oil runs through the cooler, and then it joins together right here and goes into the engine. But there is actually a little slot right here that joins with the treated oil, cooled it down, and it joins here. So because of the placement of the temperature sending unit, it never tells you the actual temperature. It's always lying to you strictly by the way it's mounted. And so it only sees what's coming out of the cooler. It doesn't see the mixed oil temperature that's being bypassed. And so
wow, that's
a problem.
It's only measuring the temperature from the cooled oil.
Yeah.
And it's a really small cooler too, where now with this adapter you can put a much larger cooler on there. And
no, but isn't that nice though, when you don't have to worry about too much heat and I mean, you know, if you're going out in the woods, you don't have to pull over or stress your engine out. I really like that.
So the oil's coming out of the remote adapter into the filter on a remote basis, then post-filtration through the cooler, and then back into the engine with cooled, clean oil.
Yeah, and who doesn't like that? Your engine does. I promise you that. This is really one of those kind of hidden problems that you don't know about. You just start your engine, right? And sometimes maybe you hear a weird little tick, and sometimes you don't, or it goes away. But also, a question you probably haven't asked yourself is, what happens when there's low pressure? Are there certain things in your engine that require a higher oil pressure to work? I think that's the next question we're going to run into.
Well, that's true. And so not only does the engine require lubrication, but there are items in the engine that simply require the pressure or hydraulic pressure to engage and work properly. And two major items are like the cam chain tensioner, That requires hydraulic pressure to put tension onto the cam chain, and then also the cam phaser gears for your variable valve timing. And so that system doesn't engage and work properly until it sees full engine oil pressure. Like I said, this doesn't really build up and takes at least about 3 to 3.5 seconds for that to happen. So especially after it's sat for about 35 minutes, because that system will have totally drained back in 35 minutes after
and you
every
guys did a
engine
little video
shutdown.
on that, right?
What's
Like,
that?
You did a little video on that, right?
Yeah, we actually videoed the inside of the cartridge oil filter system, and we saw that it completely drained out in 35 minutes. Yeah.
So there's another reason. We were talking about when you're putting your rig under heavy load, but this is why you would want to consider this even for daily driving. I think that's where you came in, right? That's what you were thinking, like, is, hey, let's not have an engine start dry.
Friction's bad.
Friction is not good. No one likes friction. No one likes friction.
Actually, it's more damaging for the person that's driving around town and turning off the car and turning it on, and turning it off and turning it on. So if you're going to pick up your kids at daycare, school, going to work, going to the grocery store, going to visit some people,
That's an
it's
excellent
draining
point.
out and filling back up.
That's a very good point.
And we have done testing on all sorts of engines. Subaru drained out probably the fastest of all the cars that we tested, and it does have a spin-on filter.
It does.
Yes, it drains out. Kevin will explain why it drains out so fast.
Yeah, well, it's an inverted spin-on filter on the a lot of the Subaru engines, the 4 cylinders that they've been running since the FA20 and FB20 series engines since about 2011. So what happens is when you start up the Subaru engine, it fills up the oil filter, but it compresses an air pocket at the top of the filter. And then when you shut off the engine, that air pressure expands back to atmospheric pressure, and doing so pushes the oil out of the filter. Now it has an anti-drain back valve in it, but that's pretty much defeated by the fact that both vanes for the supply from the pump to the filter and from the filter down to the main oil galley run in parallel inside of the engine cover just in front. And they're separated by a plate that has no gasket. And so when oil drains out of one side, air can get into the other, so it continues to drain back down to the pump, even though it has an anti-drain back valve in the filter.
I'm going to ask a question I know you're asking. How do you know so much?
Well, because I'm an engine guy and I take things apart and I wonder how they work. So one thing leads to the other. Yeah, absolutely.
Practice.
Yeah.
Practice. That's how Tom knows so much too.
You know, I break stuff on a regular basis.
That's how you figure it out. You break it. So one of the questions I have with any new product is how difficult is it to install? Because we were at a little party and I talked to one of the viewers and that was the question. He said, well, I love watching your channel, but I don't know if I could do all that stuff. So we're going to try to talk a little bit about that here. So how hard or easy, hopefully, is this to install? What would you guys say?
Well, it is very easy. This is the oil filter and cooler unit that you'd be dealing with on your vehicle. And the intake manifold would be over the top here and everything. But basically, you're going to take the cap and the filter out that you would during the course of an oil change anyways. Take those off, and then you're going to take our adapter. You're going to put on the O-rings at some part in the procedure. You'll put on the body O-ring and the tip that it comes with. You're going to just place it in there, and then you're going to run it all the way down to where you need it to be. And you'll have to orient it for the Schrader valve once you get it in there. And if you have to back it off a little bit, you can do that, just like that. Now you're going to tighten the screw here, and it's going to change that cleat and tighten it internally. And then you're going to put your Schrader valve on, and then you're going to put your spin-on oil filter on top, and you're done. It's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward.
So here's one thing that's a big deal to me. Does everything I need come with this?
Everything you need comes
does.
with it. And if there's any question about servicing this device at any time, let's say you take it into someplace else and you're having the oil change, all you have to do is direct them to this sticker that is provided with the product, and it can be placed underneath the hood.
Oh,
They just
I like
flash the
that.
QR code, takes them right to our website, and explains how to service our adapter. More importantly, to apply air pressure to the Schrader valve
Yep.
before you blow down the filter rather, and make it serviceable so you can take it off and not spill a drop of oil out of it.
I like
So,
it.
yeah.
Let me have it. I got to put hands on this baby.
There you go.
Ooh. That feels nice. You know when you pick something up and it feels solid? Look at this, man.
Ooh, shiny.
Shiny. And patent pending and
What-
patented. Wow.
What else does it say on there, Jake?
Oh my gosh, there's our thumbnail right there. That's it. That's it. It
But-
says
but-
made
but-
in the USA.
Made in the USA,
Yes, sir.
100%?
Yeah, and owned. So I'm going to tell you guys, check this out. They got some great information on their website. We'll put links below in the description, but it's Baxter Performance. And if they want to call you guys, is that the number we'll put down below?
Right, 509-448-7951, or they can go to our website. We're at baxterperformanceusa.com.
That's it. Check these guys out. And stay tuned to see if this man can follow those instructions. All right, you know how we take this out? It's these guys have patents, ours is patent pending. This man loves it when I take us out. You know what it is? It's life-changing. It's a fist bump of friendship. Whoop-ow! He loves it. Everyone loves it. See? Well, let's take a look at this. What do you got to show us here?
Well, actually, you might want to get that off.
That's all right. We can pause it.
I don't, right here, like I say, it's not where it's mixed or anything like that. Hey,
there
somebody's
it is.
calling me.
And cooled oil, that didn't sound right.
Yeah, at the same
Edit that all out.
That's easy. I
In
wasn't,
effect,
You want me left in the valley, you say?
I wasn't joking about you. Yeah, leave the capability jokes after you get dropped off. That's the real hero. One of the questions we always have with cool products, besides your phone, you're going to get us copyright strike. That music. Get out of here. I'll take your call somewhere. You ready now, Tom? You done with the call?
I was born
Yeah.
ready, Jake. Born
Yeah,
ready.
Sometimes opportunity calls. You had to take that one.